thank you all for checking out this week's episode. Once again, I'm John. If you like what you heard and saw today, subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and check out our brand new merch store with hats, coffee mugs, t-shirts, other cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Again, thank you all for support. Be safe, and see you next week. How's it going, everyone? John here, the host of Spear Talk, and today we're bringing on a guest that I've been looking forward to the last couple of months. Pete Koch. Pete is an executive fitness coach, producer, actor. You would know him famously from the iconic Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood, where he portrayed Swede. He's also a retired NFL defensive lineman, and one of those people where if you have the chance to follow him on social media, Instagram particularly, the life advice, whether it's fitness and health and this idea of prolonging your life, he is a awesome follow. And again, Pete, thanks for being on here.
John, my pleasure. I appreciate that introduction. Very nice to meet you.
And so to kind of get into this, and I hate dating these episodes for the sheer fact that I think there's value in going back and looking at a previous episode, whether it's about mental health, leadership, fitness, and stuff like that. But the reason why I started this podcast was because of the last 2 years of pandemic and out of boredom and all this stuff, which all my viewers know. But when I start following people like yourself, John Anderson, and these other fitness people with different backgrounds, male, female, whatever it is, I have found that particularly yours, it came at a time where a lot of times people were staying home, right? In the last 2 years, trying to feel sorry for themselves, or God forbid, there were circumstances they couldn't get out and they couldn't work on their health and all this stuff. So for you, was there any sort of vindication where it's like, man, all the stuff I've been preaching and learning and trying to put out there, that maybe I can start saving lives and maybe people can start following me, kind of pull what they can from the stuff I put out here?
You know, it's an interesting point. It's something I've taken, I've thought about over the last couple of years, and it's really caused me to change my position. I used to say that paying attention to your own physical fitness was important. Now I think it's critical to your life. We realize now that looking back on the countless people that we lost during the pandemic, the overwhelming majority of these folks were, with the common denominator that we have no control over is age. Aside from that, the folks that struggled the most with the coronavirus were those that were overweight and had various metabolic diseases, including type 2 diabetes and all kinds of other things that are related to being overweight and obese. So with 80% of the population of the United States, of the adult population of the United States, is overweight. I'll repeat that, 80%, right? And 43% are clinically obese. And so we're number one, right? I personally believe that the United States is the greatest nation, the most, not only the most wealthy and powerful, but more importantly, perhaps the most innovative country on the planet. And yet we, as a nation, struggle mightily with controlling our weight, which is in direct positioning in how various diseases will affect our lives. And this was highlighted during the pandemic.
In previous interviews, you've talked about your admiration for Dave Draper, Lou Ferrigno, Franco Columbu, Arnold. Before and during your NFL career, obviously you were hitting the weights and you're just massive. But was the idea of fitness and health to you, when did that finally click for you? Was this after your NFL career?
So, there's been an evolution in my thinking about physical fitness, and I'd like to say that in my judgment that if we were to look at physical fitness like a pyramid, strength is the foundation of that. Strength means a lot of different things to a lot of people, but I'll present it to you this way: as we age, strength is the ability to get off the toilet when you need to. And I'm a trained EMT, and EMTs are emergency medical technicians, are commonly driving an ambulance. And the second most common reason, the first most common reason that an ambulance, when you see it driving down a street to someone's home, The most common reason somebody picked up the phone and called 911 is because they had trouble breathing in a tight chest and chest pain. Number two is, I can't get off the toilet. I can't get off the floor. It's mostly an elderly population, of course, but you can see at that intersection where these people have gotten heavy, probably because 80% of the adult population is overweight, and they lost their strength. Why? Because they didn't pay attention to it. So one of the most fundamentally important exercises for anybody is to be able to squat. And as we get older, I'm not talking about putting a gigantic barbell on your back and going up and down. I'm just saying to have enough strength, core strength, leg strength, and mobility in your hips to hinge at the ankle, knee, and hip and go all the way down and get all the way up. How deep should you squat? Well, how far down is the toilet? You got to be able to get off that thing. And to do it, you need to be exercising throughout your life. And the foundation of that, the fundamental part of that would be your strength training, cardiovascular, mobility training. All these things are wonderful and necessary, but they're a little bit further up the food chain from strength training. So I've reached that way of thinking. I'm 60. I've got my own dog in this hunt. And that is, I need to be able to get myself off a toilet for probably, I hope, another 30 something years, 30, 40 years. I want the quality of my life, if I'm fortunate enough to live into old age, truly old age. I want that to be useful. I don't want to be old if I can't be functional, get off a toilet and do basic fundamental things. So I've evolved thinking from the first time I ever lifted weights as a 14-year-old was because I was a good athlete and I had an inspiring and positively minded coach in high school that said, "Hey, Pete, because I was playing youth football since I was 7. And he said, you have the potential to be really, really good at this because you got a couple things that we can't coach. And that is you're tall, and I'm 6'6" now, and I'm tall, and I go, you're fast. And it just comes natural to you, but you're really skinny and you have no strength at all. And you need to find the weight room." And I did. I took that to heart. So I was a skinny kid in the basement reading the muscle magazines, and it made an impression on me. That allowed me and my dedication to strength training to parlay my ability, and now that I had gained some muscle and strength, to a scholarship to a Division I school, the University of Maryland. Played football there, captain of the team there, and from there, a first-round draft pick into the NFL. So strength training was a huge part of my development as a committed athlete. So early on, I got the messaging that it was important. I committed myself to that path, that discipline, and then, and it served me well. Later on, when I got out of football, I needed a job. This is before the guys made millions of dollars. So I needed a job, and I was doing a few different things, and I was acting. But my passion was always, and I knew it, I needed like a regular job. Like my other actor friends were bartenders and waiters and those kinds of things. I had no interest in that. I wanted to be involved in fitness. So I began to get a more formal education, certifications. I'm a certified strength and conditioning coach. I'm a certified level 1 CrossFit coach. I used to own a CrossFit box. So I've got, tons of that information. And as I aged, I began to evolve the way I thought about training myself and subsequently training the people that hire me.
It is fascinating that as you get older yourself, you're adapting your training and philosophies. It's a really cool way of in a real time, a case study of someone that's you're helping someone now that's 58. In 2 years will be your age now. And 2 years from now, they're going to look at what you're doing and hopefully be like, man, I could do this. And there is something really to that where you can do something in real time.
Yeah, that's perfectly stated. And plus the path that I've been on, which includes, listen, I played a brutal, physical, violent game for a long time. And along the way, I accrued a bunch of injuries, orthopedic injuries. So I've had seven, 8 orthopedic surgeries. So I've been through the ringer there, knee, lower back, neck, all the usual suspects. I've had to rehabilitate my own damaged shoulders. I'm going through some stuff right now with neuropathy. I lost feeling in my right leg. Just kind of luck of the draw there. But I've had some surgery to try to correct that. So I'm in the healing process there. But these are real life experiences that have shaped the way that I think about the way I train myself. I should train, and best practices to train other people moving forward with a goal of superb lifespan or health span, to be more exacting. And I like that word, health span. That's that intersection of a long life and a great health, right? Because what good is one without the other? So that should be the goal. When should you start thinking about health span? Pretty early on. I mean, we're in a generation that every generation that sort of graduates high school is heavier than the generation before it, and they need to be mindful of what they weigh, one's own body composition, because you only get one shot at this body to take you through life. You need to take care of it. I mean, literally, many people put much more thought, care, and consideration into their car than they do their own chassis.
Right. It is. Now, is this something where when you talk about lifespan, the idea of prolonging one's life in a healthy way, can someone that can someone jump on this bandwagon to say my age, 36, 37, and try and say I've partied and smoked and done all this stuff, right, to take care of my body, and I want to prolong my lifespan. Am I able to jump on this idea, or is this something that's kind of have to start at a young age?
Absolutely, you can get started at any age, and it's never too late. One of my great friends, and I consider him like he's not only my doctor, but he's like a mentor, and sometimes we've collaborated. Um, and that's Dr. Robert Heisinger. I think he was the Dr. H all those years on The
Yes.
Biggest Loser reality show. And when I played with the Los Angeles Raiders back in the 80s, and that was Howie Long, Marcus Allen, and those guys, Bo Jackson, he was the doctor for that team, internal medicine doc, and perfectly trained to be sports medicine doc, because he was an All-American wrestler at Michigan before he went to Harvard Medical School. And over the years, we've talked a lot, and we have a friendship. And he's a workout nut, and I'm a workout nut, and we're workout nuts because we care about ourselves first. And it's also it's a matter of a personal accountability. If a huge percentage of the population aren't really paying attention to their own health, we need to all be our own health advocate. And physical fitness is a huge part of that. So if you're taking care of yourself, if you're thinking about, our society as a whole, like, the sicker everybody is, the heavier everybody is, the sicker we are as a society. It's a drain. It's a huge drain on resources in this country. So take care of yourself for a whole bunch of reasons. Yourself first, but if you care at all about the society that you're a part of, it's an important consideration. And one thing that Dr. Heising has told me over the years, and again, I'm good at staying in my lane as a fitness guy. And then when I'm talking to a medical doctor who's also a great advocate for physical fitness and leads from the front, I think it's a beautiful person to have in my life. And he says, the human body is incredibly resilient. We can do a lot of harm to it and kind of get away with it, but we need to be alert to the things that we do chronically. Easily the most damaging, self-inflicted wound that anybody could do to their body, that's sort of common still, although it's almost going away, is smoking, right?
Right.
So number one, just don't smoke. Still, I think it's 15% of the population or something still smokes, but the best practice is don't smoke. But then you can kind of work your way down the line. Things to avoid doing in your life is going to enhance your life and give you a better chance to live longer. But then there's the things you can do proactively, and that is to go out there and exercise. And I do understand that exercise is a very broad term, and it means a lot of different things. But if people would just embrace on some level chronically, go to a place, or whether it's a gym or you build a home gym or however you want to go about doing, find a park and do calisthenics, but work on keeping your body strong, work on strengthening your cardiovascular system. That's that intersection of where your heart and lungs are working together. And you're going to be the better person for it. It's never too late to start. Our bodies are resilient, and even if you're a senior and you're just kind of getting the messaging that it does happen that way sometimes. People wake up one day and they go, wow, I might be 70 something, and they think I might live another 15 years. It's going to be a very poor quality of life unless I change something. Some people get the message, then it's better late than never.
It is. I do find it because a lot of times people always have that deathbed wish of regret, or I wish I did this, or I wish I'd made a better decision that could have impacted my life now. But as you talked about the idea of expanding one's longevity to life and maybe changing mistakes and kind of trying to sort some out, make some stuff better. The idea of death, and as you get older, you physically start doing less and less. But with your idea and your belief system, were you ever at any time in your life kind of afraid of getting older, that you as Pete can't do what you're doing now next year or tomorrow? Is for people that have that fear of getting older, what do you say to them?
Do something about it. I mean, to answer your first question is no, I don't. I have no fear of getting older. I have fear. I really don't use the word fear. I have a legitimate thought in my head about how the quality of my life can be diminished if I don't take care of my business now. And I have no intention, on stopping. I posted recently an interview on social media, just a very short, 50 seconds, talking to a man that inspires me. And his name is Chuck Mahoney, and he's a friend of mine that I know from the gym. That's where my tribe is, at my gym. And I know it's a blessing for me. And if you can find a gym, by the way, and whatever kind of gym that might be, it might be your thing, might be Pilates, and it might be hot yoga. But if you can find a place and that's where your tribe is, preferably a place where people are social, and it's, whether you do group exercise, we've got a coach, or boot camp style training, or CrossFit. There's lots of ways to go about that, or just a general fitness gym like where I go, but that's my tribe. And Chuck Mahoney's 89 years old, and he's at the gym 5 days a week, and he's doing the same stuff I'm doing, maybe a little bit lighter weight, but he's lifting the weights and he's doing the cardio. He's also staying very, very active. Chuck Mahoney was Arnold Schwarzenegger's first training partner when Arnold moved to the United States from Austria. I think it was 1966 or something like that. Right. And so I think Arnold is 70. I see Arnold at the gym all the time, but I think Arnold is 74. Chuck's 89, 15 years older. So Joe Weider, of the fame of the Weider magazines, which are, I guess, all online now, but built the Weider empire. And Joe Weider financed and helped Arnold come to the United States. And the first person he introduced him to was another friend, Chuck Mahoney, who owned a gym in LA. And Chuck was an amateur bodybuilder, very strong. And Weider put them together because he wanted Arnold to have not only a friend and a great training partner and someone that was at his level of strength, but also someone that was older and that he could count on and trust. And all these years later, and it's so great to see when Arnold walks in and Chuck is standing there, and Arnold comes right over to Chuck and he says, "How are you, my friend?" And sometimes the three of us talk, and that Arnold inspires me, right? So he's 14 years older than me. Chuck's 29 years older than me. And then of course the rest of the gym, you've got, all the way down to 17-year-olds, working out. So that's that keeps me engaged, and that's a blessing for me. But I encourage everybody to in some way try to find that. And if it's not always easy to do, but or find some people on social media that inspire you.
I love that you could work with another college athlete or professional athlete or an actor like Benicio del Toro or an 80-year-old grandmother. The idea of these different people and how you're able to interact, and they're all searching for the same thing. And I find that really cool. So I guess my question is, when you come across someone that wants to, hey, I need Pete, I need help, I need you to coach me. If they lack motivation, is that something you can help instill in them, or do you have to kind of sit them down and be like, hey, you need to do this for yourself first?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've been approached over the last few years by a number of parents, dads of teenage kids that, like, they'll say, hey, I got this kid. I wonder if you could coach my kid. He's 16, 17, and I think he's got potential as an athlete, but this blah, 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 but he doesn't want to do the work. And I think that's, he needs to want to do the work. There needs to be some internal drive, and like,
Right.
and why I usually say, why doesn't your kid have that internal drive? I mean, if when I was that age and you said, I need you to run through that brick wall over there, I'd say, okay, if that's going to make me better, if that's going to make me a
Right.
better defensive end, you got it. Like if it was someone I trusted. And I just was a sponge to learn. I just wanted to, when I was 17, I saved my little bit of allowance and a little bit of pumping gas money, that I'd cobbled together. And I joined, we had a weight room in the high school, and wasn't good at all. And I knew the strength training thing was so important to me. And I've been learning from the magazines that, they had these machines called lat pull downs, and I was dying to use that machine. And I joined a bodybuilding gym that was about 6 miles away. And I didn't even have a car. I had to wrangle up a friend or my mother or somebody to take me to the gym. But once I got there, I was around bodybuilders, like men that were building their bodies, and I was in heaven. It was a converted A&P food market, and like you walked in, and the doors opened up like it was an old food store. So it was converted into a bodybuilding gym. It was just crazy. Like, you wouldn't see anything like this today. It was so old school, but this was the late 70s. So I was so internally motivated that I was out there trying to figure it out, like how to get stronger, bigger. How do I get around these people? Then I wanted to learn from everybody. And then the next logical, opportunity and progression was for me to do the same thing, go to the next level in college. And the strength and conditioning coach at the University of Maryland is one of the reasons I chose to go to that school, because he was a very impressive guy named Frank Costello, who was really developing, because it sounds counterintuitive unless you really understand it. But the stronger and more muscular you get as an athlete at any position, the faster you get, the faster, you can open up the ceiling on your power, your explosiveness, your quickness. And that's what I wanted. I wanted all of that. I learned about it. And my whole life, I've been seeking and curious about best practices for whatever I'm trying to do. The way I trained as an athlete when I was 20, and the way I train as a retired athlete, and just a guy, an actor and a fitness coach, the way I do at 60, they're quite different. They share the foundations. It was Bruce Lee who said, principles are few, methods are many. So the principles are, hey, what am I going to do? How can I exercise? Here's what I got here. We all have the same thing: 206 skeletal bones, 360 joints, and 646 skeletal muscles that pull the bones around the joints. All of it's controlled by the central nervous system, your brain and spinal cord. There you go. Let's train it.
You Some of my favorite memories growing up are either my parents or the coaches in different various sports, whether it's lacrosse, hockey, and the way of living your life through the sport or taking what you learn from sport into the real world. Stuff that's always stayed with me about teamwork and dedication and motivation. And recently on LinkedIn, you made this awesome post about the idea of, yes, you're a coach, but the respect you have towards your coach, Wayne Herring, and this idea that coaches can have coaches and the importance of a coach. And I found it so fascinating that someone like you, who on the outside looking in, you'd be like, well, he knows what he's talking about. Like, why does he need to go to a coach? And the fact you openly say you still need your coach in life, it's there's something really powerful to that. And I feel bad for people that never had those experiences through their youth as a coach that had an impact on their lives. And those people today that, so what if you're 40? You could still, you don't need a fitness coach. Maybe you need a life coach, and maybe you just need to talk to someone that can coach you through something they went through before. And if you could kind of touch upon the importance of coaching in your life, I think there's something really vital to that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I didn't get I got the messaging about the potential of coaches very early on, right? Because I was that skinny, energetic, kid running all over the place, and so my dad just signed me up. It was football, youth football in the fall, and then basketball in the winter, and then it was baseball in the spring. Repeat, rinse and
Right.
repeat. And I just and I was blessedly exposed to um, my high school football team. New Hyde Park Memorial on Long Island uh, had nothing to do with it, but it had, I was fortunate enough. We had two great coaches, two great men that coached the varsity, and some excellent coaches on the JV too. But they were like co-head coaches, John Kalo and a guy we called Mr. G. And they they built a dynasty out of a bunch of blue collar kids in a little town on Long Island. And I was a little cog, in that. And I am forever grateful, that I had that sort of mentorship. I wasn't getting any sort of quality mentorship from my own father. So I was really in need of some guidance, and I got it. That's where I got it from. In particular, these two men in high school. Without them, I'm a train wreck. I don't know where in the hell I'm going with my life, but what I ended up going was I had a barely passable GPA. I was scatterbrained, ADD, and all over the place. But my anchor to reality was football and the discipline that I got from my coaches. That got me to the next level, Division I. And all of a sudden I saw the light. I saw that I had the potential, to be really good at this game. And so coaching, when done right, God, it's one of the great blessings in life, because it can fill in the gaps. Everybody's got gaps in their game. And my coach, Wayne Herring, as you pointed out, he's pointed out and helped me identify beautifully, eloquently, where I can be a better businessman. And what that allows me to do, the better I am as a businessman, the more people I can help. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do as a fitness coach, is help people. There's a lot of people in need, whether they know it or not, or, but I'm trying to spread the word and help people. And the better businessman I can be, the better that is for me and my bottom line, and the better it is for the folks that I help.
I think it's, to your point, I think there's something taboo about the idea of a man asking someone for help. And there's like this idea of, oh, my masculinity is going to be wounded. And I found that the people I've resonated with at the times I've needed help, whether it's going through divorce or issues at home or work issues, the minute you ask for help, it feels like you've already got the help you need. And that weight of the shoulder coming off there, and the idea of, don't be ashamed to ask for help or talk to your coach. Because again, it's such a cool thing to have that connection with someone that's outside, say your parents or your family, or someone that's willing to look you in the face and say, "Hey, you messed up." And I think that's super vital.
I agree. Actually what you make me think of that is um, before I ever had, Wayne in my life coaching me, I had therapists and they were I remember, I think the first time I went to see a psychologist, it was about dealing with, I was racked with anxiety, general anxiety and social anxiety, which sounds funny. You go, what? This guy's
Right.
played in the
Anxiety.
NFL and he was he's an actor and I've done this kind of stuff, but it, I'm not saying I couldn't get it under control, but when you're a very anxious person and you're suffering and you spend your whole life like trying to hide it. And you also spend your whole life avoiding social situations, which is what I did for 25 years. But I went to seek some professional help. And I was in my 30s, late 30s. That was the first time. And it sounds cliche, but to talk to somebody, like you're paying money to talk to somebody who's going to do two things. But the first thing you figure out they're going to do is they won't judge you.
Right.
And that's worth paying for. Because even though your best friends will tell you, tell me anything, I won't judge
Right.
you. Yeah, they can't help it.
Right.
They can't help it.
Right.
They're your friend. And then the second thing is, on top of listening and not judging, they actually have some feedback that's meaningful, the good ones. I mean, they went to college for a long time, and got a PhD. Like this guy had awesome. He's like, I can help you. And like, I go, what do you, huh? And he just, and then we got into some behavioral techniques and whatever. And he was very helpful. So it's such a blessing to get with a great coach.
In the world, and I've always tried to kind of stay. You see like the ads for GNC or Vitamin Shop, and I'm always looking for that next power bar or something where it's like I don't know what half the ingredients are. I think it intimidates me. Um, so one of our listeners, Lori, she's always sends in great questions, was wondering for people that are trying to find that right balance of diet and snacking and eating and fitness. When you go by a place like GNC or you see an ad or this new green vegetable stuff they've got everywhere now, when you see stuff like that, what's the first step someone should do before they engage in that product? Like, is there
Yeah.
like, how would you kind of motivate someone to kind of, hey, maybe try this, but don't do this, and vice versa?
All right. So this is pro tip stuff right here. Um, two things really come to mind. Number one, as a rule, when you walk into that vitamin store, 90% of what is on the shelves is of no value. It's
Right.
just my position. And I might be might be overvaluing that 10%. But mostly not. I'm not a big supplement guy, but I also take supplement personally with vitamin D, not because I'm guessing, because my doctor and I, we do the blood work. So I know where I stand. And it is kind of interesting. I live in Los Angeles, one of the sunniest places on planet Earth. I got a big dog and I walk her, for 90 minutes a day. I'm outside all the time. And I was still low in
Wow.
vitamin D when I first really became alerted to this through a blood test about 10 years ago. And if you're low in vitamin D, not only is it not good for the way your body's functioning, it can have an effect on your mood. And if you're someone like me who struggles with a little bit of depression, boy, you're doing yourself a disservice if your vitamin D is low. So my understanding is about 70% of Americans are low and deficient in some level of vitamin D. I think that would be important to know. And that's a blood test. It's oil soluble, so you can take too much, unlike C and B, which are water soluble. You can't take too much. You just urinate it away. But so vitamin D, which actually isn't a vitamin, it's a hormone anyway. So I think D is, and but it's an important thing. But so there's a legitimate supplementation, but most of the stuff, not so much. There is a website that I would recommend people to. Pros like myself use it. It's called examine.com. And it's got a search tool. They take no sponsor dollars, and you can type in any supplement from creatine, any sort of ergogenic aid like coffee, caffeine, type it in, and it'll bring up a whole, it's like bring up a whole bunch of studies. It's like a massive database. I think there's a paid version and a free version, but you might want to just check that out. It's a nice resource. Examine.com.
As you kind of switch it down to the acting part of your life, as you transition from the NFL into acting, and the role of Swede in Heartbreak Ridge. I mean, for me growing up, I love all things Clint Eastwood, whether it's the westerns and the crime and Harry,
Dirty
for
Harry.
that Dirty Harry. For
Dirty
that,
Harry was the one. That was the first movie that grabbed me. I think I was 15 when that movie came out. I was like, whoa.
So for you to have that reaction to Dirty Harry, and then here you are working. Not only is he behind the camera directing you, he's also acting alongside you. That dynamic where, and you've talked before about, obviously there isn't a lot of actors, directors out there that can do both sides at that level he does. And so for you to, that first interaction with him on scene and behind the camera, what was that kind of like?
Boy, that's a good question. So I was a really kind of a newbie actor at the point that I was cast in Heartbreak Ridge. And, so I'd worked on several commercials and television shows and like one or two other films, and it was all done right in a traditional way. And you got a director over there, and then you got the actors on the other side of the camera. And then I got on the set, and the first scene that I'm in, Clint is dressed like the role that he's acting. He's in Gunny's Highway, camos, and but he's directing. He's not in the scene. And I thought that's kind of interesting. And my first connection was, all right, and I'm just paying attention to him as any actor would a director. And then shortly after that, we're in a scene together, and it's interesting. So here is his process, at least that I know, that they really rely on the first AD. That's your first assistant director. The first assistant director is clearly the most important organizational job on a big movie set. Creatively, that director of photography, that cinematographer, two names for the same job. That's a critically important job, but it's also very intimate. You might never even talk to the cinematographer. In the 5 weeks I worked on Heartbreak Ridge, I don't think I had any words with him, but the first AD, everybody gets to know, and it's really important. So Clint relies heavily on the first AD to do a couple things that he can't do when he's in front of the camera, and that's to start and finish the action. And whether it's action and cut, that kind of a thing. And it was interesting to kind of compare and contrast. The first AD on Heartbreak Ridge was Paul Moen, and his personality versus Clint's. So Clint would have to do all the direction, tell the actors what he wanted. If there was a rehearsal, run the rehearsal, then get it in front of the camera. It's incredibly demanding. It makes perfect sense that nobody would want to do both. I mean, you got guys like George Clooney. He'll star in a movie, and then he directs a movie, and then he stars in a movie, and then he there's a few guys like that. That makes sense to me. To tackle both at the same time, it's no surprise that he's about. Kevin Costner's done it like a couple of times, but nobody sticks with it. It's incredibly difficult, and the fact that Clint is still doing it. There was a block of time, I think, in the 2000s where Clint made, I think, 3 movies in a row that he just directed all of them. And he was almost semi-retired from acting, but now he's back to doing both. It's just
Yep.
incredible.
The interactions between yourself and Mario Van Peebles' character and Clint and the cast itself was perfectly blended together. Was someone playing a character of Swede with your size and what the role entailed? How much direction was really given to you in terms of how to play this character? Because it seemed like you were, yes, you look, obviously you looked the part. There's no CGI. You are that big of a man, but you were, do you always have that type of swagger and confidence to play a character like that? Because it seemed like for a movie, this, for a role to come happen like this for you, to be in front of Clint Eastwood, that seems like it would intimidate most people. I don't care how big you are. If you'd actually, it just seems so real and refreshing. And still to this day, it holds up in the part where you, as they talk about the Swede before you even introduced, you're like, holy shit, this is the real deal.
Yeah, there's about 30 minutes of hype. Wait till the Swede gets out of the brig. The movie's 2 hours long. Swede doesn't appear until an hour, into the movie, but you've been hearing about him for 30, 40 minutes. So it's kind of fun. So that entrance needed to be meaningful. And I'll tell you, Mario Van Peebles, who played Stitch Jones, was instrumental. I kind of like to make sure I give him the credit. Short story short is, as we're rehearsing the scene in this Quonset hut, we shot that at Camp Pendleton down in San Diego. It was supposed to be Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, but we fudged that. We shot it all in California. And so the camera was set at like my eye level, and then the guys are chanting Swede, 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 and then I come around from, and I just sort of appear, and I walk into the camera, walk towards the camera, and this is a rehearsal that we did, and just picture the camera like that, and then Clint says, "Oh, that looks fine. Let's shoot that," and then Mario says, very discreetly, very professionally, he says to Clint, I got an idea. Settle idea. I think we had shot one just like that. And Clint only likes to do like 2 takes. So
which is awesome.
I think so Mario says, what if we took the camera down, and that way then we could maybe, and the camera would come up like this. And Clint says, this was all just 4 feet away from me. And I'm like, huh. And then Clint goes, yeah, that sounds good. Let's try one like that. Hold on. So it took a few minutes because you got to reset the camera. And so they go ahead and quick do that. And then, all right, let's do it again. And then Clint doesn't even say action. He'll say something like, go ahead. And then so we do it again, Swede, like, and there's that shot. We did it once. And Clint looked at the cinematographer, and they look, now look good. Great, moving on. So we move on to the next shot. But if just a picture, the next time you see the scene, picture it static, it would be fine. Yeah. But how much more powerful it was due to Mario Van Peebles. And Mario is not only a terrific actor, but for many, many years now, he's a very, very in-demand director. And he had that eye. He knew, he saw that, and it was, and I thank him to pieces for it.
In a previous interview, I'll post a link once this airs, but you talked about when Clint Eastwood first meets you, he comes up to you, introduces himself, and you talk about the impact it had on your life in the terms of the idea of leadership and what leadership should be. When events like that happen, whether it's Clint coming to you or your coach, Wade, or stuff like that, when little things happen like that, you make note of it. In those type of interactions and actions towards you, do you kind of harvest them inside you and then project them out that way? Because you when something like that happens, he didn't have to come up to you. He could have treated you like actor number whatever, and I'm Clint Eastwood. I don't care. But the fact he went out of his way to do that in that type of leadership, or Wade coaching you the way he does, how much of different interactions with people towards you do you kind of take in and kind of project out?
Yeah. So just a quick recap of what happened was, I was living in LA. This was in the off season. I made this film. I was playing for the Kansas City Chiefs, living in LA in the off season, pursuing acting. And the first day, so I had worked 5 weeks. My role required 5 weeks. And one of those weeks we were in Puerto Rico. But the other 4 weeks were at Camp Pendleton. And the first day to work, the production had called my agent and I, and said, we want you to get down to San Diego and so check into this hotel the day before, sleep there, and then you're going to have an early start in the morning. So I drove down and I got there in the afternoon. And once I got at the hotel, there was somebody met me there, a production assistant, and said, hey, listen, they told me to bring you over to the set. So we're going to drive, and it's 15 minutes away over there on Camp Lejeune. So we drive over there, and this was the middle of the summer. We were shooting this stuff, beautiful, hot day. And then we drive, and then they're shooting a scene, and I'm on a little bit of a rise above on this hill where we're watching, and just, there's really no spectators, right? So you got the crew down there, and it was just a couple of us standing here. And now you can see about 100 feet away, there's Clint and a group of actors and a crew, and they're shooting a scene, and just watching. And so they wanted me there. So I thought, this is cool. I'm just going to watch this. And then there was a cut and a break in the action, and Clint sees me. And all of a sudden I realized he's walking towards me, it was about 100 feet. And I'm like, oh, wow. And then he comes over and he puts his hand out. He goes, hey, Pete, I'm so glad you can make it here. This is going to be really good. We're going to have some fun. It's going to be a good shoot. Wow. He just wanted me to be, that was him that told them to bring me over. He knows that people have nerves around him, especially, I was 23, right. A young actor. And and a couple things. And I think he could have easily waved me over, but in thinking on it over these years, I thought, if I go over there, if he's standing there, he's the director, he's the star, he's the producer. All he does is answer questions and put out fires and solve problems and all that stuff. So what does he do? He takes himself away from that for a moment, so he and I can connect on a personal basis. Just, it's a moment, but think of all that went into it.
Right.
And I'm forever grateful that he just took that couple of 3-5 minutes to walk over to me and set the tone. Invaluable lesson.
It is awesome. And so one of our listeners, Kim, was wondering, and maybe you can talk about other roles too, whether it's The Fire Captain, Conspiracy Theory, which is another great movie. But in terms of training for playing a character like the Swede, outside the physical aspect of it, when it comes to the people haven't seen it, the Marine Corps, it's based on military. What any sort of training that goes into these roles, whether it is for a movie like Heartbreak Ridge or another movie or a TV show, like how much more work do you put in there in terms of making a certain character believable in the world they're being presented in?
Heartbreak Ridge, I think the technical training that we got on that film was cleverly built in, because we were part of a unit of recon Marines, and there was aside from Stitch Jones, there was Quiones and
yes.
Lieutenant Ring, and there was a handful. They were all actors, and then there was another 5 or 6 guys running around us, part of us, that were the real deal, and they didn't have any lines, but they were the real guys. So in between takes, and we spent long days together when it came to how do I hold my weapon correctly, how would I move through the jungle, in a correct recon Marine fashion. They were our technical advisors. We had a distinct technical advisor overall who was great.
Right.
and a team of weapons experts, but we also had those guys to help us to be the best version, actor, Marine recon as we could be. And you don't always have that opportunity. And there's many different roles that I've, I think my training in the NFL and training camp and the physicality of all that served me well for the role of Swede. There was hundreds of guys that were up for the role. When I first auditioned, they didn't release the name of the film or who was starring in it. My agent just said, drive over to the Warner Brothers lot, be there at 2:30. And I had 3 pages of the script called sides, and I had a few lines on there. And I walk into this building, this casting, building, and there's a lobby, and there's 40 guys, and I was at 6'6", 285. I was average sized. The guys were between 6'3" and 6'9", between 260 and 320, like pro wrestlers, college football players, every bald guys, long-haired guys, every single. And then after I did my audition, I'm walking off the lot, and there's a stream of gigantic guys, heading their way. I mean, it was just hundreds and hundreds. The script read 6'7", 280. I'm 6'6" at the time, 290. That was pretty close. But there was every big guy in Hollywood and New York was auditioned for that role. But I think that my mindset that I brought to the role, which has been crafted in part by years of the discipline of football and strength training, I think it shaped my performance.
Love that. Before I let you go, I do want to say, if anyone wants to check out the social media, please let them know, Pete, where they can go. Talk about your store, talk about any projects you're coming up. And if people want to reach out to you, especially in the California area that need coaching of some sort, like how could they reach out to you and get in touch with you?
Oh, thanks. So I'm easy to get hold of, Pete Koch, Petekoch. That's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn is a popular spot. And I pretty much post the same sorts of things. Any place you might find me on social media. Some years ago, about 4 years ago, I decided that I was going to offer free fitness tips. And it's mostly exercise, mostly strength training, but sometimes stretching and stuff. They're 30 seconds, approximately 30-second videos. I call it making you better 30 seconds at a time. If you can just manage to clear out 30 seconds to watch me maybe perform an exercise or describe it, maybe describe the benefit of it. Some years ago, I read a quote that Albert Einstein said, aspire not to be so much a man of wealth, but rather a man of value. And I thought, well, I have all this information, all this knowledge, and all this experience in my head about physical fitness. I know that this country's in trouble. We talked about this. A lot of people overweight, don't feel good at all. And how can I be a man of value? I can share some of this information for free. And I think that's good. And it's very well received. And if that makes any sense to you, I don't coach anybody with a couple exceptions. I don't really do any in-person coaching anymore, but I coach people virtually. And I think quite effectively, mostly by writing. These are for people that know how to work out, at least at an intermediate level, but they're looking for guidance in terms of their programming to their strength training, cardiovascular exercise, how they can eat better and see the results that are difficult for people sometimes to achieve. So I'm like an executive fitness coach in that way. And I love to connect with people. So if you have a question or if you hit me up and DM me, I'm glad to respond.
I love that. Pete, this has been awesome. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your dedication to your craft. And look forward to many more of these down the road.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I love Spear Talk. I appreciate your time today. My pleasure.
How's it going, everyone? John here, the host of Spear Talk. You might not know this, but before I record an episode, I like to break a sweat. And I do that using the Chop Fit. Over the course of the past year, the Chop Fit has allowed me to lose weight, tone up my body, and feel even more amazing about myself. A feeling that you should all feel about yourselves as well. If you use this code, SpearChop10, you get $10 off your order. Once again, use code SpearChop10 for $10 off your Chop Fit order. It'll change your life. Thank you.